मैं राजीव May I have your lordship's permission to commence the proceedings of the court?
Yes. Brother and sister judges, Mr. Tushar Mehta, Solicitor General, Mr. Adish Agarwal, President of the Supreme Court Bar Association, Mr. Manoj Mishra, President of the Advocates on Record Association, Mr. Patidoshi, Mr. Rohit Pandey, officers, family members of late Justice M. Fatima Bibi, all the members of the bar present here. Gather here this morning to remember and honor a truly remarkable and path-breaking individual, Justice M. Fatima Bibi. She was a former judge of this court who passed away on 23rd November 2023 at the age of 96. Justice Fatima Bibi was born to Annavitil Sahib and Khadija Bibi of Pathanam Titta, Kerala on 30 April 1927. After completing her schooling at the Catholicate High School, Pathanam Titta, Justice Bibi graduated with a degree in chemistry from University College, Thiruvananthapuram. Although Justice Fatima Bibi dreamt of pursuing chemistry, her father persuaded her to study the law. Her father, who was a government employee, was an ardent believer in the power of education and had been inspired by the story of Anna Chandi, India's first female judge. He was convinced that a career in the law would help his daughter scale new heights. Encouraged by her father, Justice Fatima Bibi earned her Bachelor of Laws degree from Law College, Thiruvananthapuram. She secured the first rank and a gold medal in the Bar Council examination and enrolled as a lawyer in 1950. For 7 years, Justice Fatima Bibi practiced as an advocate at the District Court, Kollam, appearing in both civil and criminal cases. She placed first in the Kerala Public Service Commission examination and joined the judicial services as a munsif in 1958. She was promoted to the rank of a junior judge in 1968, Chief Judicial Magistrate in 1972, and District and Sessions Judge in 1974. Justice Fatima Bibi was a trailblazer and a woman of many firsts. In 1980, she became the first woman to be appointed to the Income Tax Appellate Tribunal. She was the first Muslim woman to enter the higher judiciary on her appointment as a judge of the Kerala High Court in 1983. 6 years later, she was the first woman to be appointed as a judge of this court. With her elevation to the Supreme Court, Justice Fatima Bibi also became the first woman Supreme Court judge of an Asian nation. She served in the Supreme Court of India as a judge until her retirement on 29th April 1992. Justice Fatima Bibi's time as a judge will be remembered for her exemplary service to the cause of justice, her patient consideration of cases, her impartial adjudication, and her warm relationship with the bar. At the Supreme Court, she left a lasting impact on Indian law through a number of notable judgments. In Scheduled Caste and Weaker Sections Welfare Association versus State of Karnataka, she adjudicated a challenge by individuals representing slum dwellers who were being evicted without notice. Her judgment affirmed the right of socially and economically marginalized individuals to access the court through public interest litigation and the state's obligation to comply with the requirements of natural justice and listen to its citizens before acting. She wrote, It is one of the fundamental rules of our constitutional setup that every citizen is protected against exercise of arbitrary authority by the state or its officers. If there is power to decide and determine to the prejudice of a person, the duty to act judicially is implicit in the exercise of such power, and the rules of natural justice operate in areas not covered by any law validly made. Even after her time as a judge, Justice Fatima Bibi continued to serve our country in various capacities. She served as a member of the National Human Rights Commission from November 1993 to January 1997. She was the chairperson of the Kerala Commission for Backward Classes. She also served as the governor of Tamil Nadu between January 1997 and July 2001. After many years of public service, she retired to her hometown of Pathanamthitta, Kerala. The spirit of service stayed with Justice Fatima Bibi throughout her life. Even in her later years, she was an active participant in several educational and social initiatives. Justice Fatima Bibi will long be celebrated as an inspiration who paved the way for not simply women, but the underrepresented from all walks of life. She was a living embodiment of the breaking of glass ceilings and gendered stereotypes. Indeed, her broader cultural impact has been immortalized on the silver screen. The Kerala State Film Development Corporation released a Malayalam documentary titled Niti Pathayile Dhira Vanita, or a brave woman on the path of justice, earlier this year on International Women's Day to commemorate her remarkable life and legacy. Justice Fatima Bibi received several honors in her lifetime. The most recent of these, the Kerala Prabha Award, is the second highest civilian honor conferred by the state of Kerala and marks an individual's priceless contribution to society. Justice Fatima Bibi was awarded this honor on 1 November 2023. She passed away at Travancore Medical College Hospital, Kollam on the morning of 23rd November 2023. She is survived by her sisters, Kulsum Baby, Razia Baby, and Dr. Fazia Rafiq. Justice Fatima Bibi's nephew, Mr. Aziz Syed, joins us today in court, along with Dr. Rafiq, who is attending this reference virtually. My colleagues and I expressed our heartfelt condolences to the members of the bereaved family. Our country is forever indebted to Justice Fatima Bibi's contributions, not just as a lawyer and a judge, but as a courageous and tireless public personality. She broke many barriers and paved the way for a more diverse and inclusive legal community. Her life and the ideals she stood by will forever serve as a guiding light for lawyers across the country. As we pay our respects, let us remember that her spirit lives on in the pursuit of justice.
My Lords, President, Supreme Court Bar Association, Mr. Agarwala, Sri Patijoshi, Vice President, Sri Harish Pandey, Secretary, Manoj Mishra, President SCORA, Abdul Aziz, nephew of Justice Fatima Bibi, who is present, and other family members who have joined virtually, and my colleagues. Born in Kerala in 1927, Justice Fatima Bibi was a true pioneer in the field of law. One of the only 5 female students in her class, she made her mark by topping the bar exam and earning a gold medal from the Bar Council of India. The first woman to serve as a High Court judge in independent India, she would also go on to become the first woman ever appointed to the position of a judge in the Supreme Court. In a career spanning over 40 years, Justice Fatima Bibi went from practicing in the district courts in Kerala to serving in the lower judiciary before ultimately rising through the ranks all the way to the apex court. On being asked her feelings on having made history as the first female Supreme Court judge, Justice Fatima Bibi, with her customary humility, replied, "I opened a closed door." In her tenure as a judge of the Honorable Supreme Court, Justice Fatima Bibi showed a firm commitment to human rights and the principles of fairness in state action. As pointed out by my Lord, the Honorable Chief Justice, the Scheduled Caste and Vicar Section Welfare Association versus State of Karnataka is one of the leading judgments penned by Justice Fatima Bibi. Even after her retirement in the Supreme Court, In 1992, Justice Fatima Bibi continued to play an active role in public affairs. From 1993 to 1997, she served first as a member of Kerala Backward Class Commission and thereafter as a member of National Human Rights Commission. She was appointed Governor of Tamil Nadu in 1997, a position she held until 2001. Known for her simplicity and unassuming nature, Justice Fatima Bibi opted for a quiet retirement away from public eye in her ancestral home at Pathimitta, Kerala. Justice Fatima Bibi was a true inspiration to all lawyers and particularly for women lawyers. The legal profession was left richer for having her in it, and her legacy will certainly stand the test of time and continue to inspire. I pay condolences on behalf of the Government of India, on behalf of the Honorable Learned Attorney General, and on my behalf to the bereaved family members. Great.
Honorable Dr. Chief Justice D.Y. Chandrachud, Chief Justice of India, other Honorable Judges of Supreme Court, Learned Attorney General for India, Mr. R. Venkataramani, who has joined us online while traveling, Learned Solicitor General for India, Mr. Tushar Mehta, Learned Chairman, Bar Council of India, Mr. Manan Kumar Mishra, Ms. S. Prabhakaran, Executive Vice Chairman, and Executive Chairman Apurva Kumar Sharma, and other distinguished office bearers of Bar Council of India, Learned Additional Solicitor Generals of India, senior advocates, honorable sitting and retired judges from different parts of India, Learned Advocate Generals of different states, Vice President Mr. Sukumar Patjoshi, Honorary Secretary Mr. Rohit Pandey, Joint Secretary Mr. Manish Kumar Dubey, Treasurer Ms. Yugandhra Pawar Jha, and Joint Treasurer Mr. Amrind Kumar Singh, and other distinguished office bearers and members of the Supreme Court Bar Association, President Mr. Manoj Kumar Mishra, Vice President Mr. Sneha Mukherjee, Honorary Secretary Mr. Devworth, Joint Secretary Ms. Rasmi Malhotra, Treasurer Mr. Puneet Singh Bindra, and Joint Treasurer Mr. Sachin Sharma, and other distinguished office bearers and members of Supreme Court Advocate on Record Association, family members of late Justice M. Fatima Bibi, officers of Registry of Supreme Court, including Secretary General Mr. Atul M. Kurekar, distinguished media persons, my brothers and sisters in the legal profession. We have gathered here to pay homage to our most distinguished legal luminary and pure soul, late Justice M. Fatima Bibi, who was the most distinguished judge of this honorable court. She had many firsts to her credit. She was the first female judge of this honorable court, the first Muslim woman to be appointed to the higher judiciary, the first woman member of the country's Income Tax Appellate Tribunal, the first judge to be elevated to the Supreme Court after her retirement from the High Court. Her demise is a personal loss to me. I was fortunate to have spent considerable time with her when she took over as judge of the Honorable Supreme Court. In fact, I owe it to her encouraging words that I contested the election of the Supreme Court Bar Association the first time. I used to tell her often that she had worn too many hats. She started as a munsif, then she became a sub-judge, then chief judicial magistrate, then district judge, then judicial member of Income Tax Appellate Tribunal, then High Court judge, then Supreme Court judge, then the member of the National Human Rights Commission, then she became the governor of state of Tamil Nadu. And the unique part of is that her attitude remained just the same all those years, despite occupying high offices. She remained a humble and spirited person. I used to joke with her that she should be arrested for breaking many glass ceilings. Miss Justice Bibi always came across as a calm person, but she was firm in her judicial disposition. She was patient in hearing cases and would not decide till She has got a grip over the facts of the case, no matter how complex they are. She will be remembered for showing exemplary courage in the different constitutional positions she occupied during her career spanning 51 years. She has inspired generations and has made them believe that one can fulfill every dream with hard work and sincerity. Being the president of Supreme Court Bar Association, I offer condolences to her family and respectfully pay homage to her. Jai Hind.
May I request everyone to stand up to observe 2 minutes silence in memory of late Honorable Justice Fatima Bibi, former Judge of the Supreme Court.
I have your Lordship's permission to conclude the proceedings of the court.
The court will sit for normal work at 11:15 a.m.
Racetracks, 40 weeks. Only one partner that can pack this much performance into ultra-portable, ultra-reliable technology. Now that's smarter.
Good morning. Namaskar. We are now into the 8th year of our monetary policy making under the new inflation targeting framework. If you remember, this was started in October of 2016. So 7 years are complete. We are into the 8th year. And on a personal note, if I can seek your indulgence, this would be my 32nd monetary policy, including the off-cycle meeting last year and a special meeting. And at the outset, let me also wish each one of you a very happy new year in advance. And this is how the statement reads. As 2023 comes to an end and a new year begins, the long-awaited normality still eludes global economy. The years 2020 to 2023 will perhaps go down in history as the period of great volatility, comprising a host of black swan events in quick succession. The global economy is showing signs of slowdown, though unevenly across geographies and sectors. The emerging market economies, that is EMEs, as a group have remained resilient during the current bout of volatility, unlike previous episodes. While headline inflation has receded from the highs of last year, it remains above target in many countries. Core inflation continues to be sticky, impeding the last mile of disinflation. Major central banks have kept rates on hold while refraining from forward guidance in view of the prevailing uncertainties. Financial markets remain volatile in their quest for definitive signals about the future path of interest rates. Against this unsettled global environment, the Indian economy presents a picture of resilience and momentum. The real gross domestic product, that is GDP growth for Q2 of the current financial year, has exceeded all forecasts. The fundamentals of the Indian economy remain strong, with banks and corporates showing healthier balance sheets, fiscal consolidation on course, external balance remaining eminently manageable, the forex reserves providing cushion against external shocks. These factors, combined with consumer and business optimism, create congenial conditions for sustained growth of the Indian economy. Looking ahead, it is our endeavor to further build on these fundamentals, which are the best buffer against global supply shocks in today's uncertain world. Let me now turn to the decisions and the deliberations of the Monetary Policy Committee, which was held, as you know, on 6th, 7th and today 8th of December. After a detailed assessment of the evolving macroeconomic and financial developments and the outlook, of course, the Monetary Policy Committee decided unanimously to keep the policy repo rate unchanged at 6.5%. Consequently, the standing deposit facility rate remains at 6.25%, and the marginal standing facility, that is MSF rate, and the bank rate at 6.75%. The MPC also decided by a majority of 5 out of 6 members to remain focused on withdrawal of accommodation to ensure that inflation progressively aligns to the target while supporting growth. I shall now briefly set out the rationale for these decisions. Since the last policy, CPI headline inflation moderated to 4.9% in October from 7.4% in July. The moderation was observed in all components of CPI, namely food, fuel and core, that is CPI excluding food and fuel. There has been broad-based easing in core inflation, which is indicative of successful disinflation through monetary policy actions. The near-term outlook, however, is masked by risks to food inflation, which might lead to an inflation uptick in November and possibly in December. This needs to be watched for second-round effects, if any. Domestic economic activity is holding up well as assessed in the previous MPC meetings and as reflected in the GDP growth for the second quarter of this year. Against this backdrop, the MPC decided to keep the policy repo rate unchanged at 6.5%, but remain highly alert and prepared to undertake appropriate policy actions as warranted. Monetary policy must continue to be actively disinflationary to ensure fuller transmission and anchoring of inflation expectations. The rate action so far is still working its way into the economy. Hence, the MPC decided to remain focused on withdrawal of accommodation to ensure that, as I have already stated, to ensure that inflation progressively aligns to the target while supporting growth. I would now like to provide an assessment of the growth and the inflation situation. First, let me focus on global growth in brief. The global economy continues to remain fragile. World trade is decelerating amidst global tide of protectionism. Despite significant restoration of global supply chains, factors like elevated debt levels, lingering geopolitical hostilities, and extreme weather conditions aggravate the risks to global growth and inflation outlook. Easing of inflation in advanced economies has led to expectations of an early end to the monetary policy tightening cycle, shoring up market sentiments. Sovereign bond yields are.
They'll never feel the power of 1,000 horses. Or an organ-crushing 5G. They'll never bend corners and minds. The fastest team in F1 will never even step foot in a car. But the F1 broadcast team will always rely on the power of Lenovo servers and workstations to bring the roar of the race into your living room. Now that's smarter.
Softening as markets are not factoring in any further rate hikes. Coming to domestic growth, economic activity in India exhibited buoyancy in the second quarter of this year, aided by strong domestic demand. GDP growth, as you would know, posted a robust growth of 7.6% in the second quarter of this year, that is 2023-24, driven largely by investment and government consumption. Turning to the third quarter, two-thirds of Rabi sowing has been completed despite late harvest of Kharif crops in some states. Manufacturing sector gained strength with easing input cost pressures and pickup in demand conditions. 8 core industries recorded healthy growth in October and continued their high growth since June this year. The Purchasing Managers Index, that is the PMI for manufacturing, rose in November. The services sector buoyancy has remained intact as reflected in the high frequency indicators which the Reserve Bank monitors. GST collections at rupees 1.68 lakh crore in November 2023 were also buoyant. Services PMI displayed healthy expansion in November. In my statement, there is a lot of data available which I have put in the footnote, so those of you who are interested can have a look at the footnotes. The entire data in support of whatever I am saying is available in the footnotes. On the demand side, households' consumption is supported by durable urban demand and gradual turnaround in rural demand as reflected in sales of fast-moving consumer goods, that is FMCG, and other indicators. Festival-related demand is also spurring household discretionary consumption in the third quarter, that is in the current quarter. Investment activity continues to be aided by buoyancy in public sector capex. This is also reflected in strong growth in steel consumption, cement production, and imports of capital goods. Capacity utilization in the manufacturing sector continues to remain above the long period average. Investments in fixed assets by listed private sector manufacturing companies also registered
healthy growth in the first half of 23-24, primarily driven by key industries such as petroleum, steel, chemicals and cement. The total flow of resources to the commercial sector from banks and other sources at rupees 17.6 lakh crore during the current financial year so far is significantly higher than that of last year, which was at rupees 14.5 lakh crore. Despite weaknesses in external demand, both goods and services exports returned to positive territory during the month of October this year. Looking ahead, private consumption should gain support from gradual improvement in rural demand, strengthening of manufacturing activity, and continued buoyancy in services. The healthy twin balance sheets of banks and corporates, high capacity utilization, continuing business optimism, and government's thrust on infrastructure spending should propel private sector capex. The drag from external demand is also expected to moderate with a turnaround in merchandise and services exports. The protracted geopolitical turmoil, volatility in global financial markets, and growing geoeconomic fragmentations, however, pose risks to the outlook. Now, taking all these factors into consideration, real GDP growth for the current year, that is 2023-24, is projected at 7%. I repeat, real GDP growth is projected at 7% for the current year, with the third quarter at 6.5% and the fourth quarter at 6%. Real GDP growth for next year, and we have provided the figures for the first three quarters of next year. So real GDP growth for the first quarter of 24-25 is projected at 6.7%, for Q2 at 6.5% and Q3 at 6.4%. The risks are evenly balanced. I would now like to turn to inflation. Food inflation, which was in double digits in July, has since then moderated to 6.2% in October with correction in vegetable prices. Fuel inflation slipped into deflation since September, primarily reflecting the sharp fall in LPG prices in end August. The disinflation in core gathered momentum during September-October and reached levels last seen in the fourth quarter of 2019-20 due to the combined effect of policy rate increases and reduction in cost push pressures across core goods and services. Going ahead, inflation outlook would be considerably influenced by uncertain food prices. High-frequency food price indicators point to an increase in prices of key vegetables, which may push CPI inflation higher in the near term. The ongoing Rabi sowing progress for key crops like wheat, spices, and
They'll never feel the power of 1,000 horses. Or an organ-crushing 5Gs. They'll never bend corners and mines. The fastest team in F1 will never even step foot in a car. But the F1 broadcast team will always rely on the power of Lenovo servers and workstations to bring the roar of the race into your living room. Now that's smarter.
Pulses needs to be closely monitored. Elevated global sugar prices is also a matter of concern. On the positive side, global commodity prices, particularly agricultural commodities, have softened except rice. For highly import-dependent food items like edible oils, international prices continue to remain soft. Domestic milk prices have stabilized. Proactive supply-side interventions by the government are also containing domestic food price pressures. Crude oil has softened considerably, though it may remain volatile.
Taking into account these factors and on the assumption of normal monsoons, CPI inflation is projected at 5.4% for the current year, that is 2023-24, with the third quarter at 5.6% and the fourth quarter at 5.2%. CPI inflation, and here again we are giving for the first 3 quarters of next year. CPI inflation for the Q1 24-25 is projected at 5.2%, Q2 at 4%, and Q3 at 4.7%. The risks are evenly balanced.